No, thanks, guys. Just as a heads up, I am gonna eventually talk about my work if any of you guys are interested in that. No, I just found it like it was probably even more interesting if I tell you guys what I think about right now. You know, when I'm trying to think about painting, what I think about right now and what got me here, and I think that's pretty exciting. I actually think that's it would actually give you a better context of why I paint what I paint. Just as a small like bio, I went to SVA. I graduated in '99. I had and there's a couple of my Kenichi. Graduated with Jules and Kenichi. I was actually, few people know this, but I was actually a cartooning major at the beginning, and I had a scholarship for that, and I was horrible at it. I sucked at it, and after the first year, I transferred to, I became an illustration major. I had no idea who Steve Vassell was, no idea, because at that time we didn't have internet, or we couldn't check who the teacher was, and I knew nothing about him. And I took his class. It was either him or Marvin Mandelson. I don't know if you guys know. I don't know if you guys like Marvin's work. I don't. I'm sorry. I'll just come out and say it. So I was very lucky. I'm not here to badmouth anyone too. But I was very, very lucky because I could see where, you know, the students that would take Marvin, how they would go about painting, and I would see how people that would take Steve's class would go about painting. So I was super lucky because I knew nothing about painting until my second year in school. And I saw Steve work once. It was just, I was watching him paint, and that was it. That was it. I knew I had to paint. I just knew it. And so I'm very grateful for Steve, to Steve for that. But I also really, really resent him. Because if you have Steve as a teacher, and I'm sure it happens here too, you want to paint like him, and it's horrible. You can't paint like him. Even with the brushes and the medium. I don't know if you've seen his medium, it's like super sappy and thick. It's horrible, you can't paint like that. And it took me years to realize that I can't paint like that. And not just I can't paint like that, but I'm fine with not painting like that. And that was really, really important for me. So I went from this huge palette. I'm sure Steve uses the same palette now, and I'm just talking about size, just the colors of the palette. Which was horrible too, because I had no money, and you had to get into Steve's class with all those colors, and I hated him for it. And even I came with all those colors, and the first class I sucked, and then he said, you know what, just draw for a semester. It's like, yeah, I just spent almost like $1,000 in paint, and you're telling me to draw for a semester. And now I work with like 7 colors, 6 colors. So that was actually how I got, you know, through that Steve era. I had to eliminate. I actually had all those colors. I actually still have some colors back home that were from Steve's class. I just never use them anymore. I went from those colors, and by those colors I mean most of you probably know his palette, right? It's kinda. I went from that to working with like white, ochre, red, and black. White, yellow, ochre, cad, red, and black. That was it. And I worked for like 2 years with those colors. So nowadays I have like a richer palette, I guess, but it was really important for me to be really simple, to try and understand paint like really simple. And I think today I'm going back to that. But anyways, this is a really nice painting. If any of you guys wants to know who the painter is, just yell out and I'll just say it. But he's a painter from Barcelona, and I love his paintings, but I love that title, History of Mediocrity. I'm sure many of you. And it's not like his painting's history of mediocrity. It's sort of my history. Love that palette. That's not my palette. It's E.M. Saniga. I don't know if you've seen his work, but anyways. But I was happy to see this, that you guys call this, or the class is called like history painting, and you do like these really big paintings that have like a narrative. And that used to be my definition of painting. That used to be, when I was studying, I would look at these sort of paintings, and this is like Matejko, he's a Polish historical painter. I would look at those paintings and I would say, that's what I want to do. You know, that's when I'll know I'm a really good painter. If I'm able to draw like that and to paint like that, to put all those, you know, multi-figure compositions, to have all these figures like choreographed together. I love that. This is another Polish painter. I'm sure, I don't know if you guys have seen his work, Malshevsky, he's really, really amazing. But this was the sort of stuff that I wanted to do. This is another Malshevsky, which is, if you kind of see it that way, I'll just kind of run through this. So this is like a Rubens, that's another Rubens, that's a Van Dyck. So if you see, you kind of start to see like what makes them all sort of similar. There has to be like a really nice sense of drawing an anatomy and like controlling paint, a bunch of like gesture. I love that. It was really clear in my head that that's what I wanted to do. And it was really easy because what you say to yourself is, I just need to be better at what I do. You know, I just need to draw better. I need to paint better. And by better, I always associate better with like really traditionally based painting. And I said, like this, for example, that's Velázquez, obviously, it's Surrender of Breda, and that's another Surrender that's like a 19th century Spanish painter too, and they're pretty much the same painting. It's a really sophisticated painting in the 19th century though, but it's essentially the same painting. So I would love all these sort of paintings. I don't know if you guys, I'm sure that even if you don't like these sort of paintings, you really appreciate these sort of paintings. I'm sure some of you may not care much about these sort of works, but even as a painter, we have to appreciate these sort of paintings. That's Pradilla, that's another Spanish painter. This is Bengsur, Julia Bengsur. I knew nothing, because I think we know least about like 19th century painters. That's what, you know, we never get taught, they never teach us about 19th century painting, except for like Impressionism in the end. And it was amazing for me to find out that these sort of paintings existed. And I actually traveled for like 3 months after a show I had back home when I was younger. I went through all of Europe just chasing paintings. That was like my idea of like this amazing trip. So I would have never thought going to Budapest. Bengsur is like a Hungarian painter, until I saw that image, and I would look at that and I was like, you can't paint a better horse. I mean, that's as good as you can paint a horse. You can't, where do you go from there? Fortuny, that's amazing painter. He died super young. I don't know if you know kind of his story, but he's like a virtuoso. He was like ridiculous painter. This is another Spanish, and I'm sorry if I'm showing like a bunch of like Spanish 19th century paintings, but they're amazing. And usually people don't know about those paintings, but.
What was that last one? Sorry.
This is Francisco Pradilla. That's another, he was actually head of like, what was the biggest school in Spain, the biggest painting school in Spain. He was like the director of that school at the time. But when he was older, he lost all his money. It was ridiculous because he was super respected and incredibly talented, but he lost all his money in the end. Like, for example, Joaquin Sorolla was younger when he was the director, and it was sort of like when Degas visited like other younger impressionists, like he was like that older figure that was really respected. Another like Spanish painter, and if I could like describe it, and I know this is super juvenile, I just loved cool paintings. It was like cool paintings. Like I loved, you know, this crowd coming down, just kind of coming down the steps, and this guy just saying, I just chopped a bunch of heads, but I love it. I love those heads on the floor. I love that dog, and the reaction of everyone in there. All the portraits on the people that were coming down are amazing. That's an Adolf Hirschel painting, beautiful too, beautiful painting. This is a Bengsur also, the Hungarian guy from before. Repin, obviously. I love that painting. I don't know if you guys like this painting. I love this painting. And what's weird is that I mean, all the obvious things I love, but the fact that the chair over there is tipped over, and the carpet, it's all wrinkled up, that's amazing. That's amazing for me. Because I think anyone else could have painted like this expression. Russian painters were amazing. But to think about like the before and after of the painting, of the act of Ivan killing his son, that's what's amazing. You know, the tip chair shows that they struggled, and then and the folds in the carpet just show him kind of kicking that carpet. And I think that's incredible. I think that's the sort of thing I would have never imagined, never. So I really appreciate these works. That's a Frank Bromley. That's super romantic sort of painting. That's Victorian painting, but I really like that. Really love that painting. Love this painting. It's probably like one of my favorite Soroyas. This is probably like my favorite painting. I think of, when I think of painting, I know it's kind of ridiculous, but to say, yeah, what's your favorite painting? But that's like my most consistent painting throughout the years. I've seen it when I was younger, and I've gone to the Louvre and seen it again a couple of times after that. And I still get really excited when I see it, really, really excited. And I guess it has to do with this, that whole, it sounds like a myth, but the whole story that he used to live with all these cadavers to understand what death, felt like, and he had to paint death, so he had to live with death. And even that, like Witkin using, although Jericho is like far better, than this Witkin, but I still love that. I love like crude painting, so I still love that Witkin. To this painting, and I actually love and I hate this Desiderio painting. I love it because it's an amazing painting, but I hate it because, and I'm sure this has happened before, you have an idea, and it's like cooking in your head for years, and you've never done it, and you're like, no, I'm waiting for the time to do it. And I don't want to say I had this idea. This is like 10 times better than what I imagined. But I thought I was ready to do it, and I saw it at like an art news magazine, and I was like, oh, forget it. That's it. So I love it, but it was like, it showed the potential of the idea I had. And I think it's a wonderful painting. And I love these horizontal compositions. I've always been like a sucker for that. Because I think the way we, like people from the West, we Westerners, view things from like left to right, it lends itself beautifully to read like a horizontal painting. That's a Hodler painting, Ferdinand Hodler. And horizontal paintings always remind me of these paintings. And Goya, I love. I've gone through artists since I graduated, and even since I started painting, and he's been there all the time, and specifically, and I was talking to Jasid this morning about this, specifically like black paintings, because Goya did a bunch of other stuff, but the black paintings to me are absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. I mean, if you look at like Rubens, he did the same painting, but there's no way. I mean, in Rubens, it's a gorgeous painting. I mean, the whole body and the anatomy and well, the expression of the kid is kind of weird, but that's a beautiful painting, beautiful painting. But it has nothing to, this is way over the other one. There's something that's intangible that this painting can't even touch. I don't know if you know this, and I've never been able to really understand how they did this. These were actually the photographs that they took of the black paintings when a baron bought Goya's house, and I'm sure you guys know this. He actually painted those on the wall, and they had to strip the wall. They had to strip the painting off the wall, and then they mounted it on canvas. I don't know how they do that. I have no clue how they do that. But those are the photographs that that baron that bought the house asked a photographer to take. So Goya for me is really weird, and it's like a turning point. And I don't know if you guys have that, but I do. I have that moment where things just don't make sense. And this is specifically the painting that nothing makes sense anymore. Because here I was thinking that all I need to do was paint better and draw better. And that's what would make me a better artist. If I knew how to understand anatomy better, that would take me one step further. If I knew how to understand light a little bit better, that would take me one step further. If I could compose, multi-figure compositions, that would take me one step further. And then I see this stupid painting. It's like a background that's not even air. It's nothing. It's yellow gold, and it's a dog's head. It's a head just peeking over something, and that was it. There's nothing to that painting, nothing. I mean, he actually even painted it for himself. That was, that's one of the paintings he did in his house. So this is how I felt. That's it. Wait, by the way. So, but that to me was it was like starting over again. Because like I said, nothing made sense. Or even that Mark Tansey. It's like, that's my favorite Mark Tansey. He's brilliant, I think. He's one of the most brilliant painters. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but because I used to look at that image for years, and just until like recently, and if you guys notice it, just don't make me feel bad, because I didn't. He actually paints over his shadow too. He doesn't project a shadow where he's painting. That's amazing. That's amazing. I know it's so stupid and simple, but think about it. He's like editing not only like the Sistine Chapel, but he's editing himself too. So I thought that was brilliant. But I love that feeling. I really, really love that feeling. And Esteban knows me, but I sort of obsess about this. I would love if I could have a roller and just paint over. I don't know how that would feel. Paint over Michelangelo. That's amazing. That has to be the most amazing feeling. Because I've always thought, how would I teach painting if everything was destroyed? Everything was destroyed. I know this sounds ridiculous, because there's records of everything everywhere, and now with the internet, it's like impossible for you not to find a record of something. But I always wondered, why would I tell students to paint on linen? Why? Or why would I tell them that's what you use? Why do we put rabbit skin glue? Because you have to put it, because it'll rot. So I want it to rot. Who cares? I used to I asked myself a bunch of those questions because it was really important for me. Why am I painting like this? Just because that's the way they taught me? Just because we decided that that's the most beneficial way? And I realized that we paint this way to preserve paintings. That's it. So that paintings will last. That's the only reason we paint. And I started thinking about, well, I don't really care if paints last. I don't. And I'm being super selfish, because when I was going to museums, I wanted to see those paintings perfect, perfect state, so that I could watch them. But now that I'm painting, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care if, they last. And I know that, so I know I'm being kind of strangely selfish that way. But this also made me think about these things. It's a beautiful sculpture. For the people that have seen it, I'm sure we all agree it's a gorgeous sculpture. But to me, it's like inaccessible. When I look at it, I'm like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. That's only he could do that. But that's it. But then we have no ability to connect with that image as artisans, as the people that make stuff, because it's so out there. So I started loving these sort of works even better. When he was doing an arm and then it broke off, and it's like, oh, I gotta see how I can work with that. And he sort of changed the arm's position, but then he just left it, and the arm is just hanging there. I love that. It's like bad things happened to him too. It's like he was working things out too. With this one, it's such a high degree of certainty that I don't like that. I don't. I just can't wrap my head around that. So even with this is a beautiful sculpture. I'm sure that if we've all studied here, I drew it so many times. But it's the same thing. I would look at it and I'm like, how do you go about doing something like that? It's crazy. If you have a block of stone and you're just chipping away at it, and to me it was absolutely insane. And I loved these. Instead, I would love these sketches by Carpeaux. I love them. The same with Claudel. That arm is huge. It's ridiculous. And she was an amazing sculptor. I mean, I'm sure she knew that was huge, but she was trying to work out how those figures would integrate. And but I love that she would just put this bulging, huge arm in there just to see if it would work. Or these Medardo Rossos, they're just like wax sculptures, and I'm sure they've not melted, but I'd like to believe that they've sort of softened, and this is another one of his compositions. I think it's gorgeous. Even with Rodin, I would like another amazing sculpture here at the Met. I would like these sketches better, a lot more. And these are sketches too. That sketch, and it would bring me to this. I started finding solace in mistakes, and not mistakes that would talk about their inability to do a nose. I mean, he could do a nose, and this is obviously beautiful because he decided to just sculpt and model a guy with a broken nose. And the fact that it was broken, I thought was brilliant, because if it's wrong, it's broken. It's like, oh, that's a weird nose. Well, it was broken. That was easy. You know, if it's this woman with this beautiful nose, you have to do a beautiful nose. So I thought, well, that's amazing. That's a great excuse to make mistakes. And I'm sure he wasn't thinking about that, but this is me thinking about those things when I look at that. So I would love these paintings too. So I started kind of finding these little things wherever I looked. And I love those two eyes. Love them. Even the fact that one of them just catches the light and it's like super white. The white of the eye is like super white. And then the other one is like really atmospheric. But I love it because it's almost like each eye is a moment. It's a different moment in that man's expression. Which happens in this painting too, which happens in this painting. It's like one of my favorite Nurjum portraits, I think. But it's exactly the same. If you look at it, that one eye, it's like exactly the same. And I'm sure that happens sometime in some lighting situations. But I thought it was wonderful. Or that Degas, it's like super asymmetric. And I loved it. And this is like a Freud that's like incredibly asymmetric. And it's probably one of the most caricature Freuds, but I would look at it and I would say it's amazing, because it's like you're saying, I don't really care about that head if it falls apart. I mean, I'm intentionally doing it like that, and it may look weird, but if you look at this guy and you look at a Roger Ballin photograph, it's like the same guy. It's the same guy. So it looks weird, but people are like that. So I thought that was, and that's probably why I don't know if you guys know Roger Ballin's work, but he's an amazing photographer. But when that's why I probably gravitate towards his work too, because I love those. I love people that you can't imagine. That I hate bodies that, there's some models, and nothing against the bodies. They have beautiful bodies, but if you see them nude, it's like I could have imagined that body. And I'm not saying they have to have like weird protrusions or something like that, but there's something really beautiful about the body that once it happens, you're like, wow, I could have never imagined that would happen. And I love that. And this is the sort of extreme of that, but that's why I probably love Freud's work. I think it's sort of it takes that which makes us sort of individuals and just really blows it up. And he doesn't follow like axes and stuff. Like eyes are not leveled in this Auerbach portrait. Like it's really weird. It's like a really curved head. That's a Sebastian Kruger. He does like caricatures, but he's amazing. I don't know if it sounds weird saying he does caricatures, but he's amazing. No, he's an amazing painter. Same thing that's happening with the eyes here. Brendan Kelly, amazing painter too, English painter. That probably one of the best self-portraits I've ever seen. It's probably one of my favorites. If you look at that nose, it's made up of so many little bits and pieces of paint. It's crazy that he would be able to say nose, like a singular thing, when it was so broken up. It's really weird. When they beat him up and he had like they gave him that black eye. I'm sure, have you guys seen that documentary? That BBC documentary on Freud? That they would describe that he would just get into fights and he would get they would kick his ass, and it was wonderful. I thought that was beautiful, that only we're the only ones that think like that. Like they just beat me up and I look horrible. What am I gonna do? A painting. I'll just paint myself. I think that's amazing. This is David's work. I think that portrait of his mother is beautiful. But and David has an insane ability, but I think that's beautiful because of the teeth. That's like that's the exclamation point on that portrait. It's just that teeth, those teeth. Or Anne Gale, she's amazing too. I find her amazing too. One thing that sort of started happening with my work, and I guess I'll address this even though I'm going to show my work later, was I started duplicating figures, and I'll just say it right now. And I got really bored with that because people started associating me with, oh, that's, you know, oh, that's Nicolas Uribe. That, oh, you paint like 2 figures and 2 gestures. And I'm like, I don't want to be the guy who paints like 2 figures or gestures and repeating gestures. That's terrible. What really attracted me were like small differences in the same subject. So that Diane Arbus photograph is amazing. That Roger Ballin, the same photographer. He's a South African photographer. That Roger Ballin is amazing too. And it would give me the chance to see differences within the same subject. That was amazing. Which sort of reminded me of this, like that's that Chuck Close painting. I always thought it was so weird, but if you look at the photograph, that's it. I mean, I know it's flipped, I know it's mirrored, but I don't know which one is. I just took it off the internet, but I don't know if the painting. I think the painting is like that. I guess the photograph is the one that's mirrored. But I love the mouth. I love that it's just so off that it works beautifully. And obviously he just took that and just ran with it. This reminded me of that Freud self-portrait where he got that black eye. I don't know if you know her. She's like my favorite. She's absolutely amazing. Sally Mann, yeah, she's amazing. And she does other stuff. She does amazing photography. She does like wet plate collodion photography that's beautiful. But the stuff she did with her kids, there's like, that's it. You know, she's gonna be known forever for that work. And it's the same thing. Like I have a daughter who's like 2.5, and I can't imagine her running, you know, oh, a bee stung my eye. And it's like, wait. And this is like a view camera. I mean, this isn't just like a photo. She has to sit still, and I have to bring my camera. I have to focus the camera. Bring my. It takes 10 minutes to just sit through that photograph, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful that she obviously loved her kids, but she's a photographer, and that always posed that beautiful. Dilemma that if you're a photographer, do you help the person that you're photographing or do you take the photograph? I love that we have to ask ourselves that question. I don't know if there's a nice way to answer that question. I like to believe, and we've already established that I'm selfish. I would take the photograph. I would probably take the photograph because I don't know why, but I know I would. But I love Sally Mann. The thing with her, what started sort of irking me, and this is after after me thinking about that dog, that Goya's dog. When I would look at Sally Mann's photographs, I would say, well, you know, those are her kids. It's like only she could have taken those photographs. They were her kids. That's it. It's not like this thing where you can study and you can, because what do you learn from her? I'm gonna have nice babies and I'm gonna photograph my beautiful looking babies. You can't do that. So I always ask myself, how do you access that? How do you understand what's good about that, and how do you interpret that and make it into your own work? And what happened with her happened to me a lot with Richard Billingham, his photographs too, because he has no instruction in art. And all he did was be part of like this horrible family. His dad was a drunk. His mom would hit his dad, and it's like this really trashy English family. And he knew nothing about photography. He would because Sally Mann's a photographer, but he knew nothing. He just said that the way I dealt with all this stuff was just taking a camera and shooting pictures. And these photographs, I know I've showed like amazing paintings before, but these photographs go to a place in me that none of those paintings go. They can't even reach. And that bugged me. Because I was like, you know, this was so easy for me. All I had to do was like huge paintings with like all these people. It's like I'm gonna do a huge painting just to show people that I really know how to paint. That's how I felt. Like this is a time to show off. But then I look at this. He didn't even know anything about art. He just grabbed the cheapest camera and he shot photographs, and they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. But what do you take from that? Like, what do you learn from that? that's what really bugged me. Like, what can I learn from that? You can't wish that your family was like trash and that your dad was a drunk and your mom was like overweight and that they would fight all the time. It's like, oh, if I had that sort of family, I could actually paint something amazing. You can't wish that. That's just like a reality, like a freak reality. But it bugged me because I thought, I can't access that. I can't have that. I want to learn from this, but I don't know how to learn anything from this except enjoying it, except understanding and acknowledging that this is beautiful because it's life. It's what he had in front of him, and that was it. So I started, my head. I know this is. I know we probably. Well, I don't know if you guys hate it, but I started thinking that I don't care that much anymore about art. So and this is what speaks to me. Like, I wouldn't mind drawing that mustache on the painting, not on a postcard, because postcard it's like this Antonio Saura who does the same with that's not a Goya, that's like a French painting. But I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind because I started noticing that what I loved, what really interested me, was sort of inaccessible again. So I started thinking it would be nice if art could suffer. And I know I would love, I don't know if you've seen this work, but I would love if that would happen to if you could just put a flock of woodpeckers in the Louvre and they would just kill all the paintings. Yeah, it would be amazing. Or like a Rothko. Wouldn't that be amazing if that was a real Rothko? That would be beautiful. I hate to say it, but that would be beautiful. That melting sculpture. And that's probably why I like him. I think he's a tremendous artist. I've seen what he's doing now, and he's doing like regular traditional paintings. But I love that. I love these paintings. I absolutely love these paintings. I love that he cares about something and then ruins it. But it has to work if he really cares about what he's doing. That's the only way it'll work. So I love them. I actually made a horrible attempt to do something like this, just to do it. It would be ridiculous if we do it. It's like, because we're doing what he did. But I just wanted to sort of experience that, and I thought I really think these are amazing. Even when he does like a traditional B-dimensional painting, they're really good too. These are really, really good. Reminds me of this too. So that Giuseppe Rivera. But he's really like a Baroque, like completely Baroque painter. For example, this painting, I started liking the Mike and Doug Starn photographs better. I remember looking at this painting in the Louvre, and it's a beautiful painting. And I'm not religious, but it's a beautiful, beautiful painting still. But then when I saw their work, I was like, this is better. This is far better than the painting. And Mike and Doug Starn, they're actually twin brothers. They do a fantastic job. This is actually theirs too. So this brought me actually to this painting, back to this painting, and this is like the photograph of that painting. I started realizing that I cared more about stuff that actually accompanied the work of art, or stuff that was external to the work of art, than the actual work. I wouldn't mind if something happened to it, because I would, that image, as an image, it was more like evocative to me. I don't know if you've seen this sculpted, but he does like these beautiful wood carvings, and then he just takes and just burns them, and I think they're beautiful. If I had to pick between this and this, I would totally pick that. I would totally pick that. And these are great too. I love these because Goya signifies a lot to me. I don't think they're great works of art. I just like what happens in there. But the fact that they, and I don't know if you guys know who this is, but this is Jake and Dinos Chapman. The fact that they bought the actual etchings. So this was like thousands of dollars, or tens of thousands, or I don't even know what they go for, but I'm sure like tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. The fact that they bought them, something as sacred as Goya, because you don't mess with Goya. Goya is like one of those figures that everyone can respect. I'm sure Damon Hirst has nice things to say about Goya, So this is like somebody who can stand the test of anything. And I used to see him like that, and I used to say, wow, don't mess with him. And the fact that they can mess with him and do stupid work, it's totally stupid, but I think it's good. I think that's great. I think it's wonderful that art has that you can make that decision and say, I'm going to ruin something that everyone respects. I thought that was brilliant, even though this is probably like my favorite etching of Goya, or one of my favorite images. And this is I really hope, I'm not going to do this because I'm going to start to talk about other stuff, but I hope that nobody gets offended by this. I really don't, because I think that we as painters, we have to be critical of everything that's out there, and critical of ourselves too. So I'm not being really hard on these people and not being hard on myself. If anything, I'm harder on myself than anything I'll ever say about other painters. So this is what started happening to me like right now. I like these painters, and I'm sure most of you, because I even saw like it has like some photographs of Adrian Gini, I don't know how to pronounce his name. So I know these are painters that we probably respect, but it kind of irked me that they look alike. They're like really conscious of what they're doing. And these are not in any particular order, but these are all different painters. And I know there's difference between them, so that I'm fine with there being like a small difference between them. But these are all different painters. And it bugs you a little bit. When you start looking at them like that, you start to realize, wow, this is, we're actually becoming more conscious about what's supposed to be a contemporary figure of painting than actually painting a painting, than actually questioning, why am I painting this painting? And I don't like that. Even like Samori, Nicolas Samori, who I love. I mean, I think what he does is brilliant. He's starting to do the same painting, and I don't like that. He's starting to do this sort of vintage photograph painting that I know when I describe it like that, I'm not trying to minimize. I know these are like good paintings. Trust me, like if I've looked at them and if I've kept these images, it's because I like those images. But I don't want him to do those paintings. Like, he's so different. It's so way out there what he does. Why is he doing the same paintings? So getting to this point, like realizing like, wow, that's what happens when we're so overly conscious about what to paint, like what's successful now, like who's successful, why are they successful, and we just try to mimic that. That was happening to me, and I had to stop painting. Like, I had to make like a dead stop and say, no, I can't, like my images can't be part of this carousel of paintings that I just passed, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't. I'm not painting just so I can be part of like that gallery that has 4 painters that look alike. And you can be successful, but it doesn't make sense. So I remember this. I remember like a Sally Mann. Like what made her absolutely particular was, those are her kids. That was her house. That's the lake right in front of her house. And those were kids just digging up a hole, and then there's water, and then he, her son just took that pose, and she was like, oh, that's beautiful. Just stay there for a little bit, and I'll bring the camera. Nicola Hicks, she's a British sculptor too. She does like farm animals, because she actually works, her studio is in a farm, and she grabs hay because that's what she has, and so she mixes hay with plaster, and that's how she sculpts. That's it. It just makes sense. There's nothing weird about it. James Castle, started loving James Castle. I know it's almost like nice now, like cool to like these sort of artists now, and they started bringing these artists that were never considered artists, and sort of saying, no, the art world has now decided that you are artists and you are amazing artists. But it was always called like outsider art, It's always something that you're not part of our community, but maybe we'll accept you. And James Castle is one of those people that's absolutely amazing to me, absolutely amazing. This is Ignacio Iturria. He's amazing painter too. Just the way he describes volumes and the fact that they feel so sculptural with it, and it's so naive. It's amazing. Love this painting. I really don't like Eakins, but I love that painting. And I think the only reason I like that painting is because it's his wife. I think and this is just my sensibility, but I think this painting is totally different from all of his other work. And I think he reached something that he wasn't able to reach in all his other paintings. And I just think that it was because of his wife. That's my theory, but.
What's his name?
Thomas Eakins. Yeah, the guy from like Pennsylvania. He was a really good American painter. That's Richard Billingham's mom. Amazing. You can't set up that photograph. You can't tell her. Just put your drink on top of the on top of the puzzle and wear that dress. Wear that. That's like perfect dress. That's a perfect dress to wear when you're doing a puzzle. That's amazing. And the tattooed arms. I think that's brilliant. Rauschenberg, I love. You have to love Rauschenberg. I actually traveled when the Met had his retrospective, like, what was it, like 4 years ago, something like that. I came here just to look at that show and went back. It was that amazing. I think he's a terrific artist. Henry Darger. I don't know if you guys are that familiar with like outsider art, but his story is amazing, absolutely amazing. He was a janitor, and nobody knew anything about him, and the place where he would live, it was this tiny little room, and he would make up these stories of these little girls, and they had like armies and stuff. It was like countries made up of like these little girls, and they would fight with these soldiers, and incredible. This was the first painter that I showed, and I just love the way he solved that what was it, that piece of fabric or whatever it is. It's just, again, it's so ingenious. It's fantastic. Him, I've always loved Bonnard. It's sort of my story, I guess. I paint my wife a ton, and he painted his wife for like 30 years. I've seen a documentary where they show his house, and they show every like inch of his house, and the camera sort of moves around, and they stop at a certain point, and then they start like kind of imposing all the paintings that he painted, based on that little bit of the house. And he painted for 30 years in a house. That was it. He didn't go out and paint. No, it was his house. That's it. And nowadays, I think when you sort of pose that to somebody, or like in an academic environment, you just sort of say, well, I'm going to paint inside my house, my wife inside my house. That's about it. People want more. It's like, okay, but tell me more. And it's like, no, that's it. I'm fine with that. I'll just paint my house and my wife, and she's going to take a bath, and I'm going to paint her. And I love that. I love that there's nothing more. And obviously there's more. I mean, there's more in terms of color and the way he chased color and light and stuff. But I love that essentially it was that. Dubuffet, really like that too. Weiss, I love specificity. It's very strange, but like what I was describing in terms of the model at the beginning, the way that you can't imagine what a body looks like, that sort of happens to me with that painting. That's a Polish painter too. I think it's like brutally honest and really, really specific. It also reminded me of that Sally Mann photograph of her kid, which is the same with this Clotho, this Rodin. It's beautifully specific, and I've always admired that. Like I could see that Rivera and think, wow, that's absolutely particular, or this Fortuny and think the same thing, or this Liberace, this Robert Liberace. It's just really good. But then again, when I think about specificity, I think about Eugene Carrier, and that blows me away. Blows me away. The fact that it's not specific at all. So here I thought I had something figured out, and then I look at this and I'm like, no, you know, I thought I wanted specificity, but this is vagueness. This is absolute vagueness, and I love it. And I love it. So again, it's like that's my painting. That, you know, this painting sort of detonated everything that I just said, and it's really important. And I don't know if you guys are familiar, and it sort of ruined the painting for me when I first saw this like years ago. But I think it's important though, and it's important to acknowledge it because of many different reasons. But this is the actual photograph of that painting, the one that was taken like on late 19th century. And if you see, there's like a ton of differences. There's like the stuff in the background, which is whatever, I don't know what it is. It's actually clearer, and some people say the dog was actually peeking so he could see all those little spots right up there. They're supposed to be birds, and you know, they don't exist anymore. And maybe the people that restored the painting just said, well, let's cover it up. And nowadays, it would be criminal to do that. It would be like, no, Goya painted it this way, let's leave it like it is. I think this is a better painting. I mean, I think this is better than what Goya painted. And I love thinking that, because it means that the painting is no longer his. It wasn't his. You know, he died, and the painting is ours. And the painting is, and we found a way to make that painting better. You know, I don't know what better means, but it's a lot more, it's a stronger image. I mean, I'm sure of that at least. And I love that. I love, because it has to do with what I was trying to hint at before, that it doesn't make sense to try and make paintings and to make them last forever. It doesn't make sense. When this sort of stuff happens and it's for the better of the painting, it totally transformed the painting, and I'm fine with it. I'm fine that it sort of escaped his grasp. You know, this wasn't his anymore. So I really like this. I'm gonna get into my work, and it's gonna look like crap after showing like amazing images, but I'm conscious of that, and I actually wanted to do that before, because as I said, it's better if we understand ourselves within a context. I'm fine with being brutally hard on myself too. This is what I'm currently working on. That's a portrait of my dad, and I've gone to like I've decided to be really basic with my painting now, and just concentrate on like putting color. So I actually have like raw canvas now. I'm painting on raw canvas. I actually ran out of canvas. This is a bad photograph, but I ran out of canvas, and I had strips of linen and canvas, and I thought, well, I could sew that and stretch that, and it would be nice. And it's actually important for me because this is a small study I did of my father too before painting, because I did this painting almost 10 years ago. It's going to be almost 10 years ago, and it's a freak painting. My dad is actually like a PhD in like nutrition, super bright man, super bright man. He would have never posed for a painting like that. Never ever. I was in my parents' house. I was in the computer, and he showed up like that, and he stretched his legs, and I had this really crappy digital camera, you know, where you press the shutter and it takes like 3 seconds to take a photograph. And I was dreading. I was like, I knew there was an amazing image there, but I knew if I take the stupid camera, it would take so long that he would just move. It was a miracle, but it actually took the photograph like immediately. And I didn't even look at the viewfinder or anything. I just did like this, and I took the camera, and he just jerked, and he said, well, what are you doing? I had that picture for about 2 years before I decided to paint it. But the picture was good. The picture was that. I never felt I was doing anything really important other than just translating a picture into paint, and that was it. The picture itself was amazing, I thought. But a lot of people, when I painted this, a lot of people are like, you know, that's your painting. That's like your painting. Don't do anything else. You know, you can't sell that painting. You know, you can be satisfied that you painted that painting. You can die happy. You're never going to do anything as good as that. I was like, what are you talking about? This was 10 years ago. I was 25. I was like, what are you talking about? I imagine myself like a life of painting. How can I not do something better than that? But I I sort of, at one point, I started believing that that was like my painting, and it was super hard for me. So that's why it's really, really important for me to like paint them again. And this newer painting, he's like super fragile. And this is the way my dad is. He's like big and bulky, and he has these huge hands. My hands are like a 2 years old. And, you know, super. I have like tiny hands. He has like butcher hands. That's how I imagined I should be like. Like when I was younger, I thought I was gonna grow up to be like thick and like. But no, look at me now. But so this was me painting my dad, and it's a painting like full of respect, even though he's in a position where he would have never wanted to be portrayed like that. But nowadays he's a lot older and he's super fragile, and I love that. And I still think he's really strong inside, but I love the fact that I don't see him as big, like that anymore. And I really want to translate that into painting, because what I was saying before, when I started thinking about what can I paint, I can only paint what surrounds me, what I understand, and what I feel something for. And I'm really simplistic, and I think that that's my family, and that was my father, and this is my wife. And I just saw her, and she had like a lint remover, which I think it's so stupid. If I think of a lint remover, to paint a lint remover, it would have never been nice. It's not an object that you say, well, I'm gonna paint that. That's such a cool object, I'm gonna paint it. But I saw her there, and I thought it was wonderful, and it looked beautiful. And I said, you have to stop. I'm gonna paint this. Or this is my mom. She was just peeking through a bunch of like dirty dishes, and I love that. That's my mom. More than probably this being my mom, where I have to duplicate her. And I'm actually gonna be totally sincere. The real reason I paint two of the same, it's because I never had the balls to like say, this is what the person looks like. Like when I was studying, they would show us a ton of Sargent, and Sargent is amazing. It's a ridiculous painter. He's an amazing painter. But you look at like Lady Agnew, and that's beautiful. It's a beautiful painting. But I hated it. I was like, when you're painting, you have to draw. You have to hit your drawing and your values and your color. I was like, that's way too much. I can do like one at a time. Don't ask me to do those 3 things at a time. So that same thought process carried over to like painting. I used to think, well, if I paint my mom once, I'm trying to say that's my mom. But if I paint her twice, they both can be my mom, or neither can be my mom. I thought it was really liberating. Like I could mess up and it was fine. It's like, yeah, I can sense your mom because there's 2 or 3 of them there, but I don't have to do one painting of my mom. And I guess nowadays what I do is I try to take that and say, well, I'm gonna put her behind all those like dirty dishes. It's like dirty dishes with mother. She's gonna be like secondary to the whole scene. Or this I actually had fun just painting all those like rabbits. But this is the same thing. It's the same figure, but it's trying to reach like different qualities of that portrait. And if I have the ability to get there to do it twice, then I'm probably going to be more efficient than if I committed myself to doing it once, to really understanding and doing it once. That's another painting. And I hope all those things about asymmetry and all this stuff really, they really sort of show up in these sort of images. This is another one. And look at the differences between those 2 heads. Like, I really appreciate that I gave myself the chance to do that. They're the same person, and there's changes in expression, but they're tiny. But it's fun to have the ability to say, well, I did that with one head, now I'm going to try something else with the other one. It was really nice. It felt like I didn't have to like hit everything. This is actually the study I did of her before I sort of liberated myself and did that. But I actually like that. It's really specific. That again, that's like my sister. and that's like my mom's like dining room table, and that's it. And I would just travel around. I used to love this story that, well, I don't know if it's a story, but I remember reading it, but I don't know how true it is. That Wyeth would walk. When he was drawing the model, Andrew Wyeth would be in one position when he was drawing the head. Then when he was doing the torso, he would shift his position, and when he was drawing the legs or painting the legs, he would shift his position again, sort of like a David Hockney photograph. I used to love that. I used to really like that, and he said that it would help him sort of understand like the universal qualities of that pose. And I really like that. I really love all these like spaces coming together. She's actually a student. I paint students. They're cheap. You don't have to pay them. You can tell them to pose, and that's it. Another student. That's my sister on the staircase. That's fine. Him, I had to pay. So, but it was really beautiful. I thought he took me to his house. I saw him on the street, and I was like, I would love to paint you, but this is terrible. Because why would you want to pay me? Because I'm a freak. Because I'm like a short person. And you kind of want to say yes, but that's why I want to paint you, but you don't. And I actually got to talk to him, and it was amazing. And it was weird for me to tell him, well, could you show me your body? Because it's about his body. It's not about his face. He had a face, he had a name, but I thought his body was a nicer portrait than his face. It was really, really, it would talk about who he was. So I thought that was amazing. I used to do like 2 poses in the same figure. I thought that was nice too. But again, I started really disliking when people started describing me as the person who does that thing in particular. So I'm not doing that anymore. I also, I've done a series where I take photographs. Those are all like weird. What are they, like cash machines up there? And I took a photo, and I thought they were heads. It's really weird, but today you can put anything on top of as a head to be a head. Think of anything, and it works. It works. Anything. Those stools up, the projector. Anything works. Anything. And I thought that was really fun. I also worked on top of photographs. That's the Guernica. I used to think, well, what can I do to ruin that image? To actually ruin it. To say, well, there was a nude figure there. I'll paint the nude figure on top. There was a bull there. I'll paint a cow. There's a light there. I'll paint a light bulb. I was just being really redundant and trying to see if it worked. And I don't think it works. I think I ruined the image, but it sort of works. That's a Velázquez. That's the Infanta, and I thought it was fun to just sort of fit that figure inside. This one, and I know I'm running late. You guys have class, so. Should I stop like right now, or should I sort of? Okay, that's good. This is Felix de la Concha. Actually, did light posts. He's a Spanish painter, amazing painter too. He does the most amazing light posts. I don't know if you guys have seen him. He actually showed in Marlborough, so maybe they have some of his work there. And it was stupid because I looked at his paintings and they were amazing light posts. And in Bogota, where I live, there's beautiful light posts too. And I was like, I used to go outside and look at them. I have to paint the light post. I just have to. And I was literally midway in painting that image. And I had to stop, and I'm like, what am I doing? What the hell am I doing? Like, he does this so much better than I could ever do it. It's a stupid light. I'm painting a stupid light post just because he painted a light post. So I stopped and I said, okay, I'm just, if this is a light post outside, an artificial thing, I'm gonna do like a figure inside. So I asked my wife, and she posed, and it was really, I didn't have the shoe or her bag right there. So it was really vertical, and it's horribly boring. And then I thought, well, I'll put the 2 shoes. I'll paint 2 shoes on each side. So I painted both her shoes, and it looked stupid because it looked like a really symmetrical composition. So I painted over that shoe, and I put a bag, and then I thought, well, there's 1 shoe, so I'll just call it like Cinderella from Bogota. That's how my brain works. See, that's my creative process. It's terrible. And a lot of people actually liked that painting, but it was born out of like pure urgency. It was just me realizing that I was just copying someone else's work, and it wasn't going to work, and it was stupid that I was trying to do that. These are this is what I paint with. I'm really, well, not super messy, but I'm really messy. And I love to work with like mediums. I love to experiment with mediums. I've done paintings with like encaustic, although I sucked at it, which trying things with encaustic actually made me mix wax mediums, and wax mediums are amazing. They're beautiful. They actually they sort of bug you when you paint. They sort of don't let you do a bunch of stuff, but the end layer is beautiful, and they're paintings that you actually want to touch, which is I find it's really wonderful. And these were the ones that I started doing with wax as a medium. And it lent itself to doing like really muted paintings, and I think they hint at a degree of realism that's not really there. They're really, really basic paintings, but they seem like there's more there. It's like when you look at a Richter painting, like those photographic paintings of Richter, they look more real than what they actually are, and it's because they're not really describing what's there. You're actually completing it in your head. That's another one. This is how, if I had, like, this is me and my wife a while ago. I was drinking a lot more beer back then, but this is, I like this one too. This is me and my wife. That's how we sleep. I actually, you know, she sleeps like she's a mummy. She doesn't move all through the night. She just doesn't move, and I grab that pillow and I push it against the bed, and I like that, and when we wake up, the pillows are always like that. So I thought, that's us, and nobody gets it, but that's us, and that's us, right, again. And I did this, I guess, I don't know how long ago, but it's been a while, probably 8 years ago, something like that. And this I did recently, and this is where I'm being really hard on myself. I wasn't liking all these images that I showed you that are like vintage, you know, these vintage photographs. All I did was like old, you know, Google is, I hate Google for that, but vintage photograph of a boxer, and you get all these amazing images. And I would love them. I could eat them up. I would say, oh, that's amazing. I have to use that. So, and I was using them, and I like these images. And I think this is me being an illustrator that sort of surfaces where I totally suck at being consistent, because I'll look at something and I'll just say, that's a great painting. You know, if I could paint that, that's a great painting. And many times in my life, I've just said, well, I was doing this. No, I put it aside and I paint whatever I'm looking at. And that's sort of hurt me, I guess, in the past, because I don't have like a super commercial career. Although I do fine. I can't say I'm not doing well. But I used to, when I was studying, I used to look at like Skip Lipke, for example, or like Arcadia. I'm sure you guys have gone to Arcadia. Like I know Steve Diamond there, and I've always wanted to work there. And for some reason, I've always wanted to work there. But I can't paint like that. My paintings are not something that you look across the room and you say like, oh, that's a Jeremy Lipkin. That's a Lipkin. You know that that's a Lipkin, or that's a Kim Kogan, or that's an Alex Kanevsky, or whatever. Those are super recognizable. With me, it's like, I don't know what he's doing. I'm not sure. I don't know what he's gonna send. And I love to paint that way. I actually do. And I've sort of closed doors by deciding that I'm gonna paint that way. But I like it. I like it because I want to, on a whim, be able to say, I don't want to paint that anymore. I don't. I wanted to. I did some paintings. I don't want to paint that anymore. So this happened with these. I was really, really excited by doing these, and suddenly I stopped. And I realized that I don't have to. I think in these paintings, I was trying to put everything in a blender and say, I like all these things. You know, like in the background, I've just shown you like figurative stuff, but I love like abstract expressionist painting. Love some of those painters. and the fact that I could just liberate myself and just try to draw with paint, I was so happy to give myself the opportunity to do that. But then I realized, well, I don't have to talk about everything that I like in one painting. I don't, because I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. I hated that they became sort of this checklist. It's like, to do a figurative contemporary painting today successfully, you have to check, 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 check. And I hated that. When I looked at those paintings, I was really mad at myself that I sort of let myself fall into that. But I did them, and I was really committed to them. I mean, I actually wanted to do them. This one in particular I like, but I think it shows like all the effort I was putting in trying to blend these things together. Like the top part, I really like. There's stuff there that speak about how paint is like handled that I really like. And the bottom part I like too. The fact that it's really sort of dissonant with the dogs and stuff. But again, I thought I was betraying the fact that when I look at that Sally Mann, when I look at that Richard Billingham, when I look at all those painters, what I appreciate is that they're doing something that I could have never imagined. Again, like with the bodies, when you see that nude, that you're like, this is amazing. I love that I'm here right now because I could have never imagined what's going on with that body right now. That's the same feeling I would get when I would look at Sally or Richard Billingham's work. And that's when I decided I have to stop this immediately, and I have to paint my family, and that's it. And I don't know if I'm going to paint my family now forever, but at least it's a good point where I can, it's a good place where I can actually go back to and say, this is mine. This is mine. Like I always think about Steve, for example. I love Steve. Steve is a far better painter than I am. Far better. He draws circles around me. But I have to believe that I can paint my dad better than him. I have to believe that. I really do. Because he would see just a person. I see my dad. So I know it's overly simplistic, but that's what I started sort of hanging on to. That's what's mine. That's what I can do that makes my paintings feel like, when I look like at a Neo Rauch or a von Kaufmann painting. Do you guys know him? Yeah? No? You don't know Ruprecht von Kaufmann? Really? Von Kaufmann. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. I'm sorry. He's an amazing painter. I didn't bring any images of him, but he's ridiculous. When you look at his work, that's his work. There's like no way in hell anyone else in this world could do what he does. And sometimes I get mad at myself thinking that, why do I have to be the one that's looking at other people's work? Why can't I be those people? Not successful, but why can't my work be like those other people? Why do I have to look at Adrian Gini or whatever his name is? Or why do I have to look at Alex Kanevsky? Like, why can't I be that person? What's stopping me from being that person? So that's what's changed. And it's horrible because it's been 20 years. It's been 15 years since we graduated, so it's taken a while. But hopefully there's going to be more time to paint. But that was it. That's the presentation. I know that was a horrible way to end the presentation, but no, that was it. No. Thank you. Thanks. But hopefully, if we can take anything away from that, it's just questioning ourselves. That's it. And really knowing we can't lie to ourselves. So when we look at a painting, it's like, why am I doing this? Is it really my painting? And I think we just never want to ask those questions because we don't like the answers. But it's very healthy, and it takes us to a really weird place where we have to take like super hard decisions. But it's a question worth asking. So that's it. Thank you. No, that's not quite.